All right, guys. So what we are doing right now is about wave. And from what I told you last time, the wave is something that you have to think in a two variables case. So it means you have both a position in X and time that you use T. So it's a function of X and T. So that's why every time you talk about the wave function is an animation, things pretty much moving all the time. It never stops. Okay, waves never stop. So the grand sort of like conclusion of what we did last time was like, okay, Ajahn, if we're talking about just a sinusoidal wave, the general form of that one look like this. See, this is a two variable function, and you have amplitude. Okay, you have sine or cosine, your pick. All right, they are pretty much equivalent. And then you can write down the wave function saying depending on the direction of motion, positive will means the wave traveling in the negative x direction. Negative sign means the wave is traveling in the positive x direction. And then you have omega t and kx terms. And then now you can pretty much adjust your starting position. That's mean position in an angular sense. So that means it's the angular position. So what you have as a phi toward the back, that is your initial phase. Cool. All right. So that's why you have a question asking you about that. But then sometimes you are facing two words. One is phase, the other one is angle. All right. So actually they are pretty much interchangeable. So that means it doesn't really matter much, because no matter which one you pick to speak of, they means the same thing and there's no ambiguity. However, some people might say angle is more like a geometric question, like you're doing triangle, rectangle, trigonometry and all this stuff that based on like geometry of something. So in physics, we would like to sort of like stress or emphasize on using the angle to specify the position. So they just want to use like phase to, distinguish from geometric problem. Okay. All right. But anyway, you can use phase or angle, or even this one is a phase angle. So like, okay, combine them all. All right. And what we had back then, now the K, whatever the numbers goes in front of X, is going to give you the wave number. That's the name of the K, which links directly to the wavelength. Okay. All right. So that's the wavelength that gets into the K. That's, you can read the information out of that. Now, the numbers that goes in front of time variable T, that is your angular frequency or angular speed. And that links directly to frequency. Okay. So if you have angular, it means you just add 2 pi to it. And if you don't, it just F is the frequency. Cool. All right. So just emphasize again, I think we speak of this a couple of times in oscillations problems. F is just frequency. If you want to convert the unit from revolution or, round per second into radian per second, all you need to do just multiply by 2 pi. So that factor 2 pi is just conversion factor. Okay. Or you can speak of this in terms of the period T. That is the amount of time that you need to complete one cycle. All right, cool. So this is pretty much like the grand conclusion of everything that we have done about wave. So this is amplitude. All right, nice. Any questions so far? Am I starting at the right position here? Is that right? ไม่ค่อยมั่นใจ it's too many like holidays and everything. It's just confused. Which is which? It's like, where do we go? Is this section study up to which point? Because the other sections are already gone through sounds. But I think that's where we would like to go today. I think. Very confusing at this point. All right, guys. So answer this question for me, please. All right. What do you think? So you have a transverse sinusoidal wave on a string given a period. So that's nice. So you have period already built in here. And then you say, and travel in the negative x direction with a speed given. So that's even better. So now you know the period of time, the period of the wave, which is t, the capital T, and then you have the speed. So you can notify this as the v, the velocity. All right. So just a quick reminder, v equal to f lambda. This is the one that is known, or you can write this one as the omega over k. Cool. Very nice. All right. Now, at t equal to 0, a particle on the string at x equal to 0 has a transverse position of 2 centimeters. So what does this mean? It means once you plug in 0 into your grand equation there, then you say that, hey, at time 0, position 0, you have the position of the medium to be at 2 centimeters. Plus, you also know that it's also traveling. So what you have over here is, this is y at 0, 0. Cool. And it's also traveling downward at the speed of 2 meters per second. So you know as well, the speed with the subscript y, don't forget, we're talking about the speed of the medium. Okay, the speed of the medium. So the medium is only oscillate up and down. The wave is only going to travel. Okay, so what you have over here is a transverse speed. And just to have like a quick reminder, this is just the derivative of the position with respect to time. And don't forget to use a partial derivative because the derivative is only with respect to time, not the x. So you pretty much leave x alone. Don't care about it. Okay? All right, now, so that means what you have over here is the transverse speed at 0x 0t equal to -2. You guys with me? Don't forget, it's a vector quantity anyway. So when the traveling is downward, that means you need a negative sign in the front. Cool. All right. And that's it, guys. It's pretty much done. I mean, done in the sense that done reading the problems. Okay. What else? Question 1. What is the amplitude of the wave? Number 2, what is the initial phase angle? Number 3, what is the maximum transverse speed of the string? And number 4, write out everything, pretty much. Yeah? All right. Are you ready? Let's do it, shall we? Are you guys still with me? Thank you for coming today. Like, okay. Better than expected. I thought like no one would show up because like I just had an exam yesterday. So today is not the day. Right? And I was so tiring yesterday. It's just like activities all day yesterday for me. Like started the day at like 4 a.m. or something. Oh my God. Just too much yesterday. Just like blacked out last night. All right, guys. So what do you want to try? All right. So let me start with this, guys, just to hopefully help you understand better. So let me squeeze this down a bit. Okay. So what if I'm asking you to answer part D first? Okay. Why not? Okay, everyone, think of this like a quiz. Try it together. Yeah. I love teaching online now. It's like having fun with it. Too many, sound effects to try. All right, guys, try this one first. We would like to get the wave function for the wave right away. What will happen? Let's try that one, shall we? Okay, so let me sort of, cross it over now. So that means what you really want to get to is writing out y as a function of space and time to be a sine kx plus or minus, because this problem doesn't really, it does, see, saying directly that now it's traveling in the negative x direction. So that means you have to pick the positive sign. Cool. All right. So that is kind of good. And then you follow by omega t plus 5. This is the wave equation. All right. So what can we do with this? Question is, what do you know right now? Bojan, I think I know exactly what the omega should be. Why? Because you know the period t. So that means the omega is 2 pi over period. So it's already 2 pi over 25 milli 10 to the negative 3. And that's it. So whatever this number is, well, I think I can work it out a little bit here. All right, 25 pi. And that number is kind of good. 80 pi, guys. So that's the omega. That is already known. So that's nice. That's checked. Omega is fine. What else do you know? Because you know the speed of the wave, the v, and you already know the omega, or you know the period. You can use whatever you like. So apply this equation over here. You should be able to figure out the k, right? So try that one as well. So the k, starting from v equal to omega over k. Why not? So that means what you get is k is going to be equal to omega over v. Okay, and now do you see what it is? Omega, you have already figured it out. V, that's given to be 30 meters per second. And that's it, guys. It's 8 pi over 3. It's not that impressive, actually. So. All right, but anyway, so that's what it is. So what you have, am I doing my algebra right? But anyway, you should be able to figure it out. Okay, omega is 2 pi over period, which is 2 pi over 25 millisecond. You plug it in. So, okay, I think number is good. Yes, agree? Okay, so the speed is omega over k. Omega has already been figured out up top, 80. So you just plug in the 80, the k is just omega over 30. And that's it. Okay, you get the k. So that means this one checks. Now, do you see what's the problem here? So the two unknown that you have left is the amplitude and that's initial phase angle. See? So all in all, in this whole wave function business over here, you need to know 4 terms. You need to know the amplitude, you need to know the k, you need to know the omega, and you need to know the phi. With me? But now you only know 2. You're still missing the other half, the other 2. And hence the question in part A and part B. So part A asking you to figure out that amplitude A. Part B is asking you to figure out the initial phase angle there, phi. And that's it. So that's why we have to start everything from part A. Right? So, I mean, they already asked you a good question. It's like a good step. All right? The step is already correct there. Yeah, the step is just like, okay, find out the amplitude first. All right, guys. So your task right now, how are you going to figure out A? Oh, the microphone just go too low. Sorry, guys. I have to move around a little bit here. All right, just let me know if the sound just disappear because I think the microphone position is not good. All right, here we go. I hope it's better. That's, I don't know how it works here. Already. All right, guys. So what do you think will happen? Still playing with my setup here. But I think sounds better, I guess, right? When it's closer to my mouth. All right, so first, remember going back because you really want to figure out the amplitude. But then the information that you have right now is the position and the speed at that particular position. If you remember, back in the previous lecture, we have one relationship that linked between the position and the speed. We did this through elimination of the sine and cosine terms in our wave equation. Does that make sense? All right, remember that one here? All right. So you square the speed and you square the position and then add them together. The sine square plus cosine square equal to 1. So you pretty much eliminated that sine and cosine part in your expression. And you're left with this equation right here. Very nice. Okay, so with that, that means Once you know the y, once you know the omega, you will be able to figure out the a right away. So this is an example that showcases this particular relationship right here. All right, so let's apply that, shall we? So part A, so what you need is just to use, here we go, speed equal to a squared minus y squared, and then I have omega in the front. So you can move things around a little bit. So it's going to be Vy omega, the whole thing square, plus y square equal to a square, and then you just square roots them one more time. Cool? Already. So that's the way that you can figure out the amplitude. Nice. Very nice. Okay, so with this, then A can be figured out. So of course, I'm not gonna punch the calculator at this point. That's gonna be a mess. All right, what about part B? What about initial phase angle? Well, Dan, that's no big deal now because the information has already given, and then actually there are two pieces of information that you can refer to, either the position at 0, 0, or it's gonna be the speed at 0, 0. And now your task is going to be almost done because A is known from part A, K is already known, omega is known. The only unknown is the phi. So all you need to do is just pick one of the information, maybe this position when x equal to 0, time equal to 0. Let's try that. So let me place y 0, 0 in there. So what you are getting is going to be A sine 0 plus 0 plus phi. See that? So that's the only thing left for you inside the sine function. And you just equate that to 2 centimeter. Centi is 10 to the negative 2. And from here, you will be able to figure out phi equal to what? Beautiful. Nice. And now, once you completed the part A and part B, along with the known value of the K and the omega, bam, part D is automatic. It's done. Nice. Very good. What about part C? Maximum transverse speed of the string. All right, I can remind you right now what you can do with that. To figure out the speed, you differentiate the position once with respect to time. So for part C, let me use different color here. For part C, you say the speed is just dy by dt. Don't forget to use the partial derivative, okay? Partial y over partial d. And all you need to do is just differentiate that equation that we started out with. That is our expression for everything. So differentiate that. A is there. Derivative of sine, you get cosine. All the terms in there, still in there. But then don't forget to do the chain rule. So the chain rule will give you extra omega in the front. And remember that every time that you have anything in front of sine or cosine function, those going to give you the biggest possible value. With me, remember that, okay? Because cosine never go beyond 1, never go below -1. So whatever the factor shows up in the front will be the largest magnitude possible. And that's what we call this part your maximum speed. Cool. All right. So it's pretty much done because omega is known, A is known from part A, and the omega is known from the problems. So you're pretty much done. Once again, let me summarize. There you go. That's what you need for part C. All right, guys. Very nice. Very good. Any questions that you want to know? Too much, too much. All right. All right. So does this deserve like emoji here? I think it's like a grand conclusion of everything that we have learned. All right, about waves. Yes or no? All right. Cool. Thanks for that. All right. That means a lot. Appreciate it. All right, guys. Move on to the next. Now, Bojan. What you have done? Why chain rule only give omega? Oh, okay. All right. So here we go. If you look carefully here, when you do the chain rule, okay, so let me do this. Okay, so let me put in a box here. Chain rule will give you cosine kx plus omega t plus y, right? And then you have to dkx plus omega t plus 5 by dt. Okay, let me do the partial here. There you go. Does that make sense? So whenever you do the chain rule means here, the function of the cosine, the function of the sine originally is not only a function of t just yet. So that's why you have to differentiate the whole thing. That's the chain rule, right? Okay, it doesn't have t. Correct. Cool. That's what we're trying to say. It's a partial derivative. So that means we treat x to be just a number, just a constant. Okay. Very nice. All right. Very cool. So because it's already here, so let me just park it here. All right. So now, what next? Okay. So I can give you like an inception feeling a little bit. That what's left for us to figure it out. What we have done so far since the beginning of the oscillations problem, it was talking about mathematics, trigonometric function, second order derivatives, everything, on and on. And second part, we talk about waves. So we expand that to the two variable functions, and it's still mathematics anyway. And we still use derivatives and all this stuff to figure out the speed, accelerations, and everything. Ajahn, where's physics there? I mean, of course, we started out from physics. It's a sigma F equals to ma, of course. That cannot be denied. But it seems like so far after that, we deal with a lot of mathematics. What kind of connection that you can get to the physical parameter one more time? Because what you have so far is like, okay, John, I have amplitude, I have wavelength, I have frequency, I have initial phase, on and on. They're all numbers, but there are no relationship that trying to link this back to the source of disturbance, right? Remember that, right? We have to generate wave, you need a disturbance. Something need to move up and down. So this is going to give you a little bit of that. So what we can do is the connections is, it turns out the determining factor that tells you how fast the wave is going to travel in the medium must give you the connection that you are looking for. You see what I'm saying? So what I'm saying is, if you have a medium that's going to generate a wave in it, how fast the wave can travel in there depends on some physical properties of that medium itself. All right. And that's what we are going to look at. The simplest type of waves is the wave on a string. Okay. And when you have a string, of course, well, I can have like a string over here, and hope you can see it. Try to make it red over here. All right. So when you have a string over here, every time you try to generate a string, a pulse, okay, I can just move my hand up and down. Up. Oh, this is going to travel so fast. All right. Up and down over here. That wave will travel along the string. Okay. So, I mean, if I can do it slow mo, it's going to go something like that. That's really bad. All right. But anyway, the point is how fast the string, the wave can travel inside this string depends on two factors of this string. Okay. One is pretty understandable. Well, John, it depending on the tension. Let me zoom this thing in. This kind of makes sense because the higher the tension of the string, it seems like the travel of the wave is supposed to be faster. Because when you have a very taut string, every time you disturb the string, it seems like that disturbance should get propagated very easily because everything is so high tension, right? It's sort of like you are ready to send out whatever things that happen to me to the neighboring area. On the other hand, another factor that comes into play is how big is the string. And that seems to make sense. When the string is big, you're probably not going to have it move quickly because it's inertia, because it's a common sense, things that has a bigger mass going to travel slowly. So that's why you have an inverse relationship with the mass of the string. However, of course, we're not going to talk about the mass of the whole string. We're going to have like a normalization a little bit. So the mu that you see over here is going to be mass per length. Or if I say this, how would you feel? Density. You like that? It's like, are you serious, Ajahn? What was the definition of density you have seen before? Well, of course, Ajahn, the density back in the day was just the mass over volume. That's the common. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, that's definitely, that's, there's a common notation of the density. But here comes the question. Go back to my string over here. And every time you learn physics, initially, you give like, some, simplification. You want to simplify things a little bit by saying that, hey, this string has no thickness. It's a one-dimensional piece of mass. One dimension. There's no width, there's no depth, it's only length. So if that is the case, how would I define the density of this string when this piece of a string is now a single dimension object? Does that make sense? Yeah. All right. So that's what we're trying to get to, is like, that's not what I'm trying to do. So that's why revealing the density in one dimension. You don't have the other two dimensions. You don't have the width. You don't have the depth. You only have the length. Let's use mass per length to be your density. Why not? That's it, guys. That's my explanation. Cool? All right. So that means if you have a piece of paper, and then if your assumption saying that, hey, this piece of paper has no thickness, you care about the two-dimensional object, the mass per area will be your density. Make sense now? No, right? And now if you go back to the three-dimensional problems, of course, that's your general concepts of density that you have learned since the maybe elementary school, mass per volume. All right, guys, so that's cool. So just in case you stumble upon this word like linear density. So if you have like the word linear density, that's what it means. It's mass per length, because now the linear means 1D. It's a one-dimensional object. Now you're probably asking, well, John, wait a second. What about the rest of the screen here? You're not going to talk about it. The answer is no, I'm not going to talk about them. The reason is because just a proof of this relationship over here. I've tried it and everyone hates it. So stick with this. All right. It's good enough. All right. And for those of you that really want to know what was the underlying, derivation of this formula, you can read through this slide. Otherwise, this is it, guys. The speed of the wave in a string, depending on the tension on that string, divided by the mass per length under square root. And you are done. Alrighty, guys. Try it, all right, and see how it goes. Just give like a quick check of your understanding. Suppose you create a pulse by moving free ends of a taut string up and down once with your hand beginning at time 0. So that's what it is. We can move hand once, create a pulse. That pulse travel throughout the string. Now the string is attached at its other ends to a distance wall. The pulse reaches the wall at time t. So it means pulse takes time t to travel from your hands to the wall. Which of the following actions decreases the time t? When you want to decrease the time t, so it means you really want to have the wave travel faster. Does that make sense? Okay, all right. So what among these four, once you do it, give you a faster wave? A, move your hand more quickly, but still only up and down once by the same amount. Not good, right? Because moving your hand doesn't do anything. You just change the shape of the pulse. No. B, moving your hands at a greater distance up and down in the same amount of time. Same thing as A, right? Because by having your hands move up and down greater distance, you only create a higher amplitude or the higher height of the pulse. But that doesn't change the way that the pulse will travel. So part B, no good. What about C? Use a heavier string of the same length and under the same tension. Now things are changing because now you change the mass per length because you use a heavier string. So per unit length, you're going to have a higher amount of mass of the string. However, this one go opposites to what you really want. Have a heavier string, it turns out, make your wave travel more slowly. Does that make sense? So it's going to increase the time that it takes to get to the distance wall. So part C is no. What about D? Using a string of the same linear mass density. So use the same string. However, you decrease the tension. Decreasing the tension. Decreasing the tension, you decrease the speed of the wave. So that means you increase the time that it takes for the wave to travel throughout the string. So part D is, so none of them, guys. That's it. All right. So of course, this isn't a multiple choice. It just say which of the following action. So the answer is none of them. All right, but I hope you understand how things goes in terms of make the connection between the speed of the wave traveling and the physical parameters, which right now we drew the conclusion that, hey, only two parameters involved here, the tension of the string and the linear mass density. Cool. All right, guys, try this one. All right, so this is going to be the last example for this particular topics of waves. And I hope that clear things up here. A light string with a mass per unit length of 8 grams per meter. So this one giving you the mu. Has its ends tied to two walls separated by a distance equal to 3/4 of the length of the string. All right, so the figure already showcases everything. An object of mass m is suspended from the center of the string, putting the tension in the string, of course. Part A, find an expression for the transverse wave speed in the string as a function of mass of the hanging object. All right, so the idea is you sort of hang the mass in the middle, so you pull down the string, give it some tension, and you would like to generate a pulse of wave. For example, you might just, flicker your finger on the string, so there will be a wave traveling out. So they want to know what will be the expression for the speed of that wave that you just generated that is traveling on that string, right? As a function of the hanging mass, m. Isn't that interesting? Yeah. Is that annoying? Maybe. Give me like an angry emoji. So say, Dan, be quiet, and I will be quiet. All right, guys. So how are we going to do this? Of course, there's only a single relationship that you really need to use is, the speed of the wave is square root of tension over the linear mass density. All right. So that means what you have to do is figure out the tension and the mu, but the mu is already known. Well done, that's done. So that means the only work left to be done over here is just finding out the tension. What would it be? All right, help me figure out the tension. Ooh. What do you like? Yeah. It's like too quiet. All right, that's okay. The thing is, well, John, you need the tension. Yeah. Let's give it tension then. So we just have to do the diagram, the free body diagram. Remember that back in the day of the Newtonian physics and all this stuff. So first, you just say, oh, John, there must be an mg pulling this whole thing down. And you just care about that junction over there because that junction will reveal the tension on the string on both sides. Does that make sense? So you think of it like you do a free body diagram on that junction. Think of it that way. And it's trying to express what are the forces acting on that point. There are only three forces. Mg is pulling down, two tension. But then because it's symmetric on both sides, you can pretty much draw the conclusion right away that the tension must be the same. So I can just use a single value T on both. All right. And now because everything is static, everything is in equilibrium. So all you need to do is just, of course, do the sigma F equal to 0. So the net force along the horizontal must be 0, which is going to be the case. So I can do that by breaking these tensions into the vertical and horizontal directions. That horizontal direction definitely cancel each other out and doesn't really give you anything much. The only thing left is just that tensions components that pointing up. And that can be calculated very easily if we define this to be the angle theta. So the pointing up tension is going to be T cosine theta. You guys with me? But then you have two of them. That's it. So that is the upward force pointing up, net to be 2T cosine theta. This must be equal to the hanging mass, or the hanging weight, the mg. So that is it. Your tension can be found from mg over 2 cosine theta. And the cosine theta is very easy to evaluate because you know all of the dimensions of this right triangle is 3L, 3L over 8, right with me? Half of the 3L over 4. And then you know the hypotenuse to be L over 2. So by doing this, you should be able to figure out the theta already. So the theta is known, so you can plug it in, and that's it, guys. Your velocity that you really want is just mg over 2 mu cosine theta. And that's it. Just plug in every numbers that you know in part B. So part B is no more than just plugging in the given value and figure out the speed of the wave. But this gives you the idea how can speed of the wave get connected to the physical property of the medium. Sounds good? All right. All right, guys. So I think that is done for the first half of the lecture. And we are pretty much closed down this handout right here. Any questions? Any emojis? All right, guys. So let's take a break right here and we will be back with the next handout. All right. So take 10. I will see you in a bit, guys. All right, guys. So welcome back. And what we have for the next one is now we are going to look at an examples of some types of waves. All right. We are going to start with sounds. Okay. So that's the first one where we're going to look at. And once we're done with this, we're going to look at light, but in, just some aspect of light, because it turns out light is very complicated business to deal with, right? So we are going to pick just only some particular properties to study. All right. But before we get to that, let's start with the easy one, the wave. The reason that I say it is still easy is because the wave is just the propagation of the disturbed air. Does that make sense? All right. So the idea of the disturbed air is just saying that, okay, every time that something is moving in like a periodic fashion, which is the maybe the simplest kind, is just simple harmonic motion, right? Going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, right? So once you do that, the things that you're gonna disturb them right away is just the area of air around that object. Does that make sense? Okay. Oh, so with that, then what it means is here, the simplest kind probably is just something that is can be set to oscillations very easily, and this device is called a tuning fork. The reason it's being used as a tuning device is because of the simplicity of the structure of it. It's just like a bar. And once you have a bar, you sort of like you kick them, have them oscillate back and forth because it doesn't have any complex structure. It's only going to vibrate back and forth very, very close to simple harmonic movement, which is sine or cosine function. Is that cool? All right. So that's kind of nice. Oh, where's my sound effect? Oh, it's still on. It just I have my speaker down. Sorry, my bad. Oh, it's huge. Sorry. Still not very familiar with my own system over here. All right, guys. So what do you have there then? When you have a tuning fork oscillating back and forth. So here, molecules of air around this thing, right? It will get push and pull back and forth. And once the air molecules next to the fork get pushed, of course, it's going to keep pushing the neighboring molecules on and on and on. And that's how you send down the wave, right? Just like we discussed all along. It's just the propagation of a disturbance. Cool? All right. So that means once you get pushed, all right, there you will create an area that when you push, of course, the molecule of air get close together, and that will be a portion where you get a higher density than just a normal air. Does that make sense? All right. On the other side, when the bar move backward, you sort of like create like a sort of like a vacuum type thing, because I mean it's not totally vacuum, of course, but you're going to create a void, an area in the air that has like a very low density of air. And then this process just keep repeating itself, right? You push the air get compressed a little bit, the bar gets retracted, you create a void, so a low pressure area, and then everything go back again. So that variation of the air compression gets sent out in the form of sound. That's it, guys. All right, cool. All right, so that means when we talk about sound waves, you can also talk about this pressure wave. It's a wave of the variation of pressure. Okay, so that's why in the textbook they discuss like, okay, if you want to look at the displacement of the air molecule, right, is going to be sinusoidal wave. However, if you would like to consider the pressure variation, it will also doing a sinusoidal behavior anyway. All right, and as you can see, maybe the phase are a little bit different on and on, but I don't want to go too deep into this business anymore, because I mean it's purely mathematics and it doesn't really give you, I mean of course it give you more insight into this type of waves, but in terms of headaches and all this stuff, I don't think we need to dive too deep, but that's what you need to know. Okay, so in conclusion, wave is a longitudinal wave. Everyone knows it because if you look at the movement of the air, is oscillating in the horizontal direction based on this configuration over here, and the wave itself traveling in the horizontal direction, and this is a longitudinal wave. Okay, but as I already put a note to the mathematics that we did previously, it doesn't matter if your wave is going to be transverse or longitudinal. This mathematics are the same. So that's nothing new. Okay, so now we are going to move on from it. Look at this. All right, on the receiving side, that compression variation, I mean the pressure variation, will eventually hit your ear. For example, in this case, if you just use your ear to listen to the sound, so your eardrum will get pushed and pulled depending on the change of the pressure, all right, that's coming fall upon the area of your ear. So that, yeah, your brain and everything can pick up that variation and interpret it in terms of sound. Cool. All right, so that's no big deal now. So we don't want to deal with the sinusoidal wave up and down anymore. We would like to turn our attention to something else. Here we go. Mojan, just like when we learn like Newtonian physics and all this stuff, when you started out with like the movement, velocity, acceleration, sigma f equal to ma, blah blah blah, then you're gonna have to talk about energy, right? So what is going to be the energy aspect of waves? That's something that is interesting, isn't it? Yes. And then that's what we are trying to do right now. So if you think about it, if you have a source, okay, so that will be your source right there. And just for simplicity, let's say that, hey, your source is giving out energy E, okay, in all directions. So that means you are thinking about a point source, okay? So that means you have a source that can be treated as a point. So that means the sound waves, this is, we focus on sound, but it could be any kind of waves, doesn't have to be sound. But if you talk about the sound wave and it's a point source, so that means the sound that generated by this source is going to be traveling out in all directions. So that means if you look at the surface of the wave itself, you're going to have a spherical shape wave. Make sense? Diverging, bursting out from the source. But then you say, Ajahn, it's the wave. We already said wave never stop. Once you generate it, it's keep moving. All right. And if you continuously generating it, it's going to keep moving. So that means just speaking of the energy alone, it doesn't seem to make sense because this energy gets pretty much delivered, right, in the form of wave all the time. So it's probably a good idea to talk about the rate of the energy transfer or the energy delivery. So that's why we take that energy per unit time to be sort of like, telling you how much energy is being delivered by that source. And we already got this as a definition of power. You guys still remember this? Power? All right, cool. So we can put like average into it if we want. The reason is because, the wave is going up and down, so the energy is fluctuating with time. But if you average across many cycles of wave, then all right, you can have like an average value. So sometimes they put an average just to indicate that in detail analysis, it's like a wave, it's going up and down, but we average out into a single number. So that means we can speak of the source in terms of, hey, the source come with a power, is ready, okay, to give off the energy. But then thinking another way, on the receiving ends, it depends on how far away are you from the source as well. Why? Because look at this, when you are far away, you have to pretty much distribute that power over a larger area. Does that make sense, guys? So that means the number of share that you're going to get in your ear, let's say you use your ear to listen to the sound, it's going to get less and less when the sphere growing bigger and bigger. Does that make sense? Okay? So in comparison to the people that stay very close to the source, you get a bigger share because the surface of the sphere is not that big. But once you move further away, whoa, right? You have to pretty much like, spread those power among larger surface area. So giving the position and the same area that you're receiving the sound still constant, then you receive less amounts of share. when they say share, it doesn't make much sense, I mean, quantitatively. So we probably have to define something. And something means it depending on the area, right? So why don't we just talk about the power per area of that sound? Perfect. And that is the definition of, hey, intensity, guys. And that is it. Woo. All right. So that is the wave intensity. Is by definition, it's just the power per unit area. And if you are talking about a point source, the area of a spherical surface is 4 pi r squared. So in conclusion, the further away from the source, the intensity will drop as a square law. And this also explains why you are further away from like a speaker, you're hearing the sound, I mean, lower, lower, lower in volume all the time because of these factors here. Okay, sounds cool. All right, so that's an easy one. See, so we don't even have to have any like formula for the kinetic energy or gravitational potential energy anymore. We just say, hey, given a power or energy per unit time, you just calculate it, the area that this power has to spread across, and you come up with the intensity of sound. All right, so let's check the very simple concept of this one and see if you understand how to calculate the intensity. A fireworks rocket explodes at a height of 100 meters above the ground. An observer on the ground directly underneath that explosion experiences an average sound intensity of that much. All right, so you have an explosion in the air, bam, and there is a guy underneath just listening to that explosion. And because it's explode in the air, you can assume that it's like a spherical sound wave. That's kind of cool. All right, so the explosion is a point source. Think of it that way. And it turns out this guy picked up the intensity of 7 times 10 to negative 2 watt per square meter. All right, that's not bad. Okay, and he is 100 meter below, and he experiences for 0.2 seconds. What should be the sound energy of this explosion? What do you think, guys? Well, John, this is pretty straightforward. First of all, from the definition of intensity, is just a power per unit area, and because the area is treated as just a sphere from a point source, it's a 4 pi r squared. Cool. But then you just learn that this is power of the source, which is just the energy per unit time. Okay. So if you trace back and you really want to get back to the energy, all you need to do, just take intensity, multiply by the surface area, then multiply by the interval of time that you're experiencing that sound. You will be able to trace back to calculate the energy. And you're done. Woohoo! Easy? All right. And I think from this, what you can actually, in reality, you can do it. So if you have like a device that you can pick up the intensity of sound, and then somehow you're listening to like maybe a sound of like some explosion, a bomb or something, and then you pick up the intensity of sound. If you know how far away of the sensor or that receiver and the direction at the source of that explosion, then you should be able to trace back and approximate what should be the energy of that explosion. And then you might be able to approximate, like, hey, is that like a C4 bomb, or is like, I don't know, nuclear bomb? All right, but if it's a nuclear, you shouldn't be listening to the sound anymore. You just should run. All right, just kidding. All right, not nuclear joke is not good at the time. Not good. All right. Me moving on. Next one, guys. Try this. This is pretty realistic here. You have the area of typical eardrum, pretty close to reality, is around there, 5 times 10 to the negative 5 square meter. Okay. So Calculate the sound power incidence on an eardrum at a given intensity. Part A is 10 to the negative 12. And then they call this the threshold of hearing. What does it mean? It means everyone in this world agree that 10 to the negative 12 watts per square meter, that is pretty much the average intensity that humans start hearing sounds. Is that cool? All right, so now we want to calculate the sound power. So that's easy then, Mojan. By definition, intensity is just power per unit area, but this time you don't need to assume the point source anymore because you know the area exactly that we are talking about is the area of the eardrum. So you can calculate the power by just taking the product between the intensity and area. That's it. All right, and you just plug in. Everything is in SI system, is kind of nice, and you just plug in the area of our eardrums. And as you can see from the units, the meter square will cancel, and then you get the final answer in watts. Cool? All right, part B doing the same thing, same relationship and everything. So the power can be calculated through a product between I and A. But now the threshold of pain, it turns out the intensity about 1 watt per square meter can actually start to give pains to your ears now. So it's going to be 10 to the 12 magnitude bigger in power to start to hurt you. All right, right there, and it's done. All right, so I hope by just showing you these two examples, that's pretty much how you convert or how you relate the power and the intensity of sound. Nice. All right, so that's kind of neat. But then, in reality, guys, think about it. Mojan, when I speak to my friend, I can hear a voice of your friends this loud, let's say. But let's say you speak with tens of your friends at the same time, or maybe 10 of your friends just, yell at you at the same time. Do you hear the sound 10 times louder? Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. It's not that mysterious. But maybe a better example is this. When you go to a concert, now that's a lot of people. You can say like 1,000 or even 10,000 people, and they are screaming and cheering at the same time. Now that's like a big source of sound. Will you think that you are hearing the sound 10,000 times louder relative to just only single of your friends screaming? No, it's not. Definitely not, right? Because 10,000 times, that's a huge sort of amount of the change. So that's why there is something missing over here. Because if you speak in terms of the power, if you increase the source by 10,000 times, the power will increase 10,000 times as well, because you have 10,000 times more sources around. But your ear does not respond to that. There's something missing here, and this is what this is. It turns out your ear will not respond to the sound in a linear fashion. When I say linear fashion, what does it mean? It doesn't mean that if the sound that hits you increased by 10 times, your interpretation of sound will feel like, okay, this is 10 times louder. If you hit your ears with 1,000 times more energy, you're not hearing 1,000 times louder sound. So that means the response of your ear is non-linear, and hence you would like to use something of a non-linear function to interpret your sound level. Does that make sense? All right, so now this is the connection with the human hearing now. Okay, and I hope you will feel this one much better when you hear the units of the sound level. It's a decibel. So this one is like, okay, I've heard of that many times. When you want to detect the sound level, then you express in the units of decibel. What is the sound level? It's actually the full name of it. It's the intensity level or intensity sound level. However, I mean, it's very confusing, right? Because you just add the word level to the intensity. Then, sometimes you might just get confused between that just the pure intensity and intensity level. So maybe we just avoid them altogether by just speaking of the intensity as the I. That was the one that we defined before. And we talk about the intensity level purely just say is a sound level. Why not? Yeah. So the key word is just the level. All right, cool. What is the definition of this, or how can we define the level of sound? Here, well, if you want something non-linear, the function that you can think of is definitely going to be logarithmic function, right? So everyone knows a log of 1 equal to 0, Jan. Log of 10 is 1. Log of 100 is 2. Log of 1,000 is 3. Do you see something here? Right? Of course, the benefits of doing the logarithmic scale is you turn something that's increased exponentially into a linear increase. See, when you look at the arguments of the log, you start from 1, 10, 100, 1,000. You increase like a 10 times, 10 times. You move up one order of magnitude. But once you take the log of that, it's go linearly. So that's what we want. We want sort of like, you want to, transform something that's grow exponentially and transform it in terms of something that's grow linearly, so we can speak a little bit easier. Or back in the day of doing experiments, right? If you remember, you're doing science experiments, and if some experiments, the data, shoot up exponentially, you have to use like a log plot, because you need like a log scale, and will make your increase linear. That's the whole point, yeah? So we're going to do that too. But what kind of level that you want to detect? Because it's a sound. Oh, okay. The concept is easy. Let's take the original intensity that you pick up from any source of sound, but then you compare this to the, hey, here we go, threshold of hearing. So you just use this 10 to the negative 12 to be the base or the reference, because this is a starting point where you start to hear something. What is 220 decibel? That must mean something, I guess. It's like a name of a movie or something. All right, but anyway, just so you know, 420 decibel, that's gonna like explode your brain. Not only your ears, I think. Yeah, I think 140, that's already, your ears will bleed already. So if you talk about 400 something decibel, I think that's a bomb. All right. So if you, that's a good point. Thank you for the comments. Look at the table on the right. See? So if you need a jet plane and you don't put any protection gear in front of your ears, then that's it. I mean, you're dead, man. All right, guys. So back to us. So what do we have here is you would love to have the intensity, right? And then you do the ratio. You just want to do a relative, right? Okay, how much in comparison to a reference threshold of hearing? And once you have this ratio, then you know that, hey, this will scale up in a nonlinear fashion. Let's put a log on top of this, and that's it, guys. If you talk about log of the ratio of I over I naught, this instant is in the units of Bell. And now, because maybe, the scale is kind of like too coarse, you want a more refined scales. You want the scale to be, easier to read, or the steps a little bit, more detailed. You just do the deci, 10 to the negative 1 over 10 to the negative 1. You just do a unit conversion, that's all. And that 10 to the negative 1, that is the deci. And then you left underneath of 10 to the negative 1. You flip it up, and that's what you get here. Number 10 in the front, right there, guys. So you multiply by 10, you divide it by 10, you get decibel units. And that is the formula for calculating the sound level. That's it, guys. Woo! Not bad. Not bad. Right? Very doable. So 10 log of I over I naught. And you know, for those computer people, you probably have used this a couple of times. Maybe not now, but in the future. Because the concept of having something in ratio like this will come in when you do like signal processing. It's about signal again. So every time you talk about signal, then you have a noise coming in, and the level of noise that mix in the signal usually is very small, like a many order of magnitude. And if you just want to talk about the amount of noise with respect to the full sound signal, not sound, full signal size, it's going to be like many order of magnitude, and it's just going to be too hard to talk about. So that's why you, once again, you rely on this log function. So you take the log of that noise with respect to the maybe the full spectrum of the signal. Then you can speak of the noise in a decibel unit as well. See? So this is very useful. All right. But for us, this is just for the purpose of, you know, talking about the level of sounds. And just so we now know that from now on, when you talk about the 0 decibels, yeah, you guys, doesn't mean like there's no sound. 0 means it's the threshold of hearing. You are at the 10 to the negative 12 watts per square meter intensity. Cool? All right. And then you can move up and up and up. But now, every time that you know that when you move up by 10, that means you already increase one order of magnitude. All right. More and more and more and more. All right. And that's it, guys. So the I naught that shows up right here, we just use this 10 to the negative 12 value. This is, you know, it's a convention for the whole world. It's not like a constant of a universe, of our universe or anything. It's just the average value of the human threshold of hearing. That's all. You might be wondering about, John, what if we have like evolution that some days we are more sensitive to sound? Yeah, who knows? All right, but anyway, let's say just that's a convention that people pick this number 10 to the negative 12 to be the threshold of hearing, and yeah, just move on. All right, guys, so that's it. So what we're going to do, we're just going to do 2 examples, and then we're going to call it done for today. Sounds good? All right. So let's give you a lot of, like, you know, some energy to, you know, do the last push, and then we're done. So start with the 2 identical machines are positioned at the same distance from a worker. The intensity of sound delivered by each machine at the location of the worker is given. All right. Now, they want to know the intensity of sound when 1 machine is operating and what happened when 2 machines is operating. All right. So this is going to be a straightforward plug and play. So part A, let me call it a beta 1. All right. We use beta to signify that we are talking about the intensity level. We talk about level. So what we need to do is just take the 10 log of I over I naught. Okay, just do the 10 log. Now do you have only single machine running, so your intensity is coming from just only single machine. So your intensity is going to be 2 times 10 to the negative 7. And then you divide it by 10 to the negative 12. The numbers that we agreed we're going to use for a threshold of hearing intensity. And that's it, guys. It's 10 log 2 times 10 to the 5th. Let me put it there. Be careful. No, it doesn't have to be careful, but that's just a quick note. The units cancel. And just like I, you know, talked about this already and have been talking about this for many times, whenever you have quantities after log, exponential, sine, cosine functions, that physical quantity must have no unit. It must be a dimensionless quantity, right? Because we cannot have log of mg, log of tension, no, right? It has to be no units, and this is what it is. It's just a number, okay? All right, but I want to show you just a quick, you know, just to showcase non-linearity of this logarithmic function. I can refer to, everyone I hope still remember this properties over here. Log of a product is the sum of the log. Yes? Yeah? All right, logs of xy equal to log x plus log of y. So what I can do here is I can say it's a 10 log 2 plus log of 10 to the fifth. And that's it. I can write it as 10 log 2 plus 5. But I mean, you don't have to do this, but I just want to show you in contrast to part B. So I can do the same thing, but now two machine is running. So the only thing that's changed is just you double the intensity. When you have two machines, the power is doubles, energy is doubles, intensity is going to be doubled. All right. So what you have here in part 2, the only thing that you have to change is just change your intensity into a new value. All right, I can omit the unit right now. And that's it. It's done. Okay? It's done. So the only thing that you need to change, just change it to number 2. I change number 2 to number 4. See, and then you can see this is going to be going from 50 something decibel if you punch the calculator into 50 a little bit more decibel. Okay, all right, so I hope this showcased the nonlinearity of the logarithmic function. Oh, of course, Ajahn. All right, you double the intensity, but it's louder just a little bit. It's just, you know, going from 10 log 2 to 10 log 4. It's not going to be a lot. Cool? All right, so that's the whole point of the logarithmic function. All right, try the last one, guys, of the day. This one is going to be something that's, well, pretty easy to do because it's just like what we did in thermodynamics. It's comparison again. All right. The sound level at a distance 3 meters from a source is 120 decibel. At what distance will the sound level be 100 decibel? Oh, which make perfect sense that you're gonna have to run away from it, right? Because maybe it's too loud already. 120 decibel is gonna numb your ears. So you want to walk away from 3 meters, but to where? What is going to be your new distance? So it's the two scenario. So let me call the first scenario to be scenario number 1 when you stay close to the source. And when you move away, let's call it a scenario number 2. And then you can write out everything, use the subscript to distinguish between these two scenarios. So that means the first sound level, let's call beta 1, is going to be 10 log I1 over I0. Cool. Same thing will happen to the second scenario. Let me use a subscript 2, and it's going to be 10 log of I2 over I0. Cool. And then you want to compare. But back in the day, we did this comparison before. You take like P1 V1 over T1 equal to P2 V2 over T2, yeah? Right? So it's kind of boring. But anyway, you did the ratio or you did the division of the functions, yeah? And then you just do the comparison. You would love to do this here, but it's stuck a little bit because you have a logarithmic function in a way. How can we sort of overcome this? No problem. Once again, there is another property of log that you still remember, I think. Log of the ratio is the subtraction of two logs. Right there. Yeah? Oh, so that means what I can do is I just take the difference of the two logs. The arguments of those two logs will be a ratio. The ratio that we really want to compare. Sounds cool? All right. So that's kind of all right. Let's do it. So let's take beta 1 minus beta 2. The reason I put the beta 1 first, because I know that the beta 1 is going to be bigger than the beta 2, because beta 2 is at 100 decibel. So I just keep beta 1 minus beta 2 positive. And it's going to be 10. I can pull a common factor 10 out. It's going to be log I1 over I0 minus log I2 over I0. Cool? But now the difference of two logs is just a log of the ratio. So it's going to be 10 log. Now it's going to be I1 over I0. Boop, boop, boop. I2 over I0. Boop, boop, boop. Very nice. And then you notice right away, now your I0 just cancels, which is good. All right, so we don't care about the I0 anymore. And now you have the ratio between the two intensity sitting around for you to do the comparison. what kind of comparison do you need? Well, that's good because we already learned that the intensity is just the power per unit area, and because we can assume for this one because it's just a point source, even though it's not obvious, but because there's no other case or other argument, then we just say, hey, let's assume it's point source. It's gonna give you a spherical waves, and then move on. All right, so that means for the first scenario, you can just put the subscript 1 all over the place. Why not? Same thing with the I2. And you have subscript 2 everywhere for the 2. Cool? All right, so with that, then you can move on and say, hey, Dan, it's going to be 10 log. Now, that's a good thing about this. Then you can have a ratio of everything inside, and I can sort of like group them together for easy comparison. So I can do this. I can just group P together. That's the ratio of the power. And I can group the distance, which is going to be R2 first, and everything is under the square function. And the 4 pi, we just cancel each other out. Isn't that nice? All right, so this one, it's once again make things easier to, analyze because you group the same quantities together, plus you use the ratio, just like what we did in the past, and that's it. And even easier for this one, you are not changing any source. It's the same source, you're just moving away. So the P1 and P2 must be the same, so they are canceled as well. So you're only left with just the R2 and R1. Now it's time to substitute the value into it. Beta 1 is 120, beta 2 is 100. So on the left side is 20. The right side, now you are left with just this. Cool? All right, and actually I can even substitute R1 because R1 is 3. And it's almost done, guys. Here we go. Well done. That's 2 cancel. And if everyone still remember log of something with the exponents will drop down to the front. Whoa, almost done. And pop. And that's it, guys. R2 is just 30 meters. And it's done. Any questions? All right, so I think this is the point in the lecture that things get sort of like breezy, easy going, because you don't have any calculus anymore, and the analysis about the energy, intensity, and level is quite all right. Okay, it's more like algebra. There's no calculus involved anymore, and the analysis is pretty straightforward. All right, so that is it, guys. Any questions? All right, cool. If not, and that is a wrap for today, guys. Thank you. All right, and I will see you guys next week, which may be still online. I'm confused. All right, but I'll put the notification on. Online crap. Yes, thank you. All right, so we'll see online. Yeah, it's open house, right? Remember that now. Okay, so we'll see each other again on Thursday. All right, and it's gonna be online. Okay, all right. Thank you, guys. So next week will be online for Thursday and Saturday. All right, and I hope the sound effect is not too annoying. All right, guys. Thank you for sticking around. I'll see you guys next week. All right, bye-bye.